This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
His mentality about how to do houses have been very much in line with my own, and I thought it would be a way for me to polish up what I already know. I needed to be able to refine my strategy, and that's exactly what Jason has been teaching me. So I've got 25 houses of my own, which are a fair amount, but we need to always refine and continually improve how we go about our business, and I'm learning that from being here.
Welcome to the Creating Wealth Show with Jason Hartman. You're about to learn a new slant on investing, some exciting techniques, and fresh new approaches to the world's most historically proven asset class that will enable you to create more wealth and freedom than you ever thought possible. Jason is a genuine self-made multimillionaire who's actually been there and done it. He's a successful investor, lender, developer, and entrepreneur who's owned properties in 11 states, had hundreds of tenants, and been involved in thousands of real estate transactions. This program will help you follow in Jason's footsteps on the road to your financial independence day. You really can do it. And now, here's your host, Jason Hartman, with the complete solution for real estate investors.
Welcome to episode 1745. Thank you for joining me, and greetings from beautiful Tampa, Florida. We are at a mastermind group this week, and I tell you, mastermind groups are just phenomenal. One of the best decisions I've ever made in my life is to join mastermind groups. I've been a member of many of them, and one of the attendees here with me just joined, and she has been on the show before, and she also was one of the speakers at Empowered Investor Live, so I just saw her 2 weeks ago, and that is the fabulous Darlene Root. Darlene, welcome.
Thank you, Jason, and I have a little bit of a hoarse voice from all of the greetings yesterday. Went down to register for 10 minutes, and that turned into 6 hours. So,
well, that's what happens when you run into everybody you know.
Yes, yeah. It was like the who's who, so it was good running into last night, and thank you for dinner.
Yeah, my pleasure. Well, yes, speaking of dinner, inflation, Darlene's wine was a $19 glass of wine. But there's no inflation, right?
There's no inflation, not at all, because that bottle probably costs like $6.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's there's a markup and then there's inflation. They're kind of two different things, yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you, we stepped out of the conference here, the mastermind meeting, for a few minutes, so the audio quality probably isn't the greatest, but hopefully it's good enough for everybody. The reason I asked Darlene to join me for this segment of the show today is that last night we got to talking about something, and as you know, if you've heard her on the show before or saw her speak at Empowered Investor Live, she is one of the most well-informed people when it comes to IRAs and 401ks and qualified plans, I guess is the better way to say it. She really knows her stuff. And there is a potential law coming down the pike, and it could be pretty scary. And so you're going to hear the scary part here, but I just want you to remember that my old teaching about the 3 dimensions of real estate applies to this. Because with everything in life and economics, there's always what I call an equalizing factor. And the way people get hurt is that they can't wait long enough for the equalizing factor to play out. So when things change and there's a shift in the political environment or the economy, there's always a lag time before the system and the supply and demand curve kind of works its way through, right? So if prices, this is part of the 3 dimensions of real estate, if we're in a time where prices start to soften, as long as the population is steady or increasing, which it is, for now at least, we have a situation where rental demand increases because housing supply decreases, so that puts upward pressure on rental rates, usually at a time when house prices could be softening. And the flip side of that is also true, okay? When you see housing affordability really high, people are moving out of the renter pool into the buying market because most tenants want to be homeowners, then you see this situation where you'll tend to see downward pressure on rents, but upward pressure on prices. So the beautiful thing, one of many beautiful things about income property, is that you have this situation where all you need to do as an investor is just adjust your strategy for that time. And as long as you're buying prudent properties that make sense from day one, the day you buy them, and you're not expecting anything extraordinary to happen, usually that's called appreciation, then you're going to be in great shape. But again, it's the lag time that kills people. They can't wait through the lag time in the market change. So what we're going to talk about today is a potential shift in the market. And I think this is pretty significant, and that's why I wanted to have Darlene here with you. You know, we're sober because it's morning.
Yes, we are, but again, no voice. So,
So Darlene,
yes, go ahead.
Tell us what's happening.
Sure.
Tell us what our wonderful people in Washington, D.C. are considering doing to us or for us, or, you know, to help the people, to protect us, right?
Sure, yeah. So there is a $3.5 trillion grab, right? And part of the 813-page document of the giveaways that they're going to be doing in this $3.5 trillion grab, which grabbing, by the way, is out of your pocket, going into probably lining the pockets of the billionaires that are already out there. Yeah. So it's the opposite of the Robin Hood effect. This is taking from the poor and giving back to the rich.
Which is pretty much the kind of world we've been living in for a while.
Exactly. Yeah. So one of the things, or there's actually a thing that will affect Roth IRAs and traditional IRAs in a couple of ways. One, they're looking to the bill is in the Congress right now. They're looking to cap the amount that you can accumulate in your self-directed Roth or traditional IRA.
So that's a very important word Darlene just used. She didn't say the amount you can contribute.
Correct.
That's what most people think of. It's the amount you can accumulate.
Accumulate is key.
And when Darlene was on the show maybe a month ago or so, we talked about the Peter Thiel situation where he's got this $5 billion billion dollar Roth IRA.
Yeah.
And so this is an issue of what they refer to as the backdoor IRA, right? And what is that?
And I believe what Peter Thiel did, I addressed this in the podcast, I don't believe he opened up a Roth IRA because back in '99 when he did it, his income might have been too high to actually open up a Roth. And so what he would have done is he would have taken that $2,000 contribution, opened up a traditional IRA, and the next day do what we call a backdoor Roth, and that is convert it from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. And the significance there is anything that Peter Thiel would have invested in would then be tax-free. When he turned 59 and a half, he could start taking qualified distributions.
And those would be tax-free distributions if it's a Roth, because the tax was paid on the way in.
On the way in.
But when you have something inside that account that grows massively, like Facebook stock, which is a 1 in a zillion home run, but hey, it happens, and Peter Thiel's arguably the smartest guy in Silicon Valley. This is something the powers that be want to end, right?
They not only want to end that, but obviously they lost $1 billion in taxable income, and they want to make him an example. You cannot do what Peter Thiel did. And so the maximum amount that you can have is $10 million. And a lot of people go, well, no big deal. I don't think I'll ever have a $10 million IRA. Well, you may not, but there are people who may, and why would the government put a cap on something that they gave you full ride on to begin with? So it starts there, and then, it's the waterfall effect. Well, we got away with that. Let's see if we can say it can't be more than $5 million. The other thing is the contribution limit. So you can make a contribution to your IRA, Roth or traditional. They want to cap that if you make more than $400,000 a year for 50 filing jointly, married filing jointly, you can no longer make your contributions.
Okay, so if you are 50 years or older and married filing jointly, they would say if you have a combined income of over $400,000, you can't contribute to a Roth IRA.
No. So you can
you keep the one you already have?
You can keep the one you already have, as long as, which is my next talking point, if your Roth IRA or your traditional IRA is a self-directed entity, meaning a LLC or a trust. So your custodian set it up in such a way that it's a checkbook LLC. We'll use that as the example. You have, if the bill passes, you have 2 years to unravel that LLC and get the money back to your custodian. And that right there is going to be a cluster, because a lot of your listeners and a lot of my colleagues invest in notes and real estate and PPMs and so forth.
And a PPM, of course, a private placement memorandum,
Correct.
which is usually like for a startup company.
Yes.
Or something like that. And this is insane. If this
Yes.
thing goes through, it would cause potentially just chaos in these companies and these investments and these deals. I mean, where people would basically have to unwind things within a short 2-year period, and maybe they invested in something that had a time horizon of 5 to 7 years, but they would essentially be forced to unwind these.
Absolutely. So I'm involved in a PPM where there are 6 or 7 of us who have self-directed IRA or Roth in it. And so the development would have to sell and cash out in 2 years.
And this is a real estate development?
This is a real estate development in order for us to comply. Now, if that happens, if it's not sold out and it's not unraveled, then those individuals with an IRA or Roth IRA would then, the government would disqualify that from being an IRA. In other words, they would say it's a prohibited transaction.
Wow.
You will be taxed on the entire amount and potentially blow up your IRA or Roth IRA. This does not, however, affect HSA and CISA, I mean,
Okay.
they're
So
not
health savings accounts, yeah, right.
correct,
Okay.
and 401ks so far. But that's just the start. So the math that I use, just to trickle it down to explain to some people who couldn't get the math, if you have 1 million investors who are using an IRA or Roth IRA, and they have a checkbook LLC, and they own 4 properties, that's 4 million properties, rental properties, that would have to be fire sold in 2 years
Right.
in order to comply with this wacky section of the code.
Okay. So let's translate that into what that means. Number one, I don't think a 2-year period is what I'd call a fire sale, but over the course of 2 years, if an additional couple million properties come on the market, that could change things for sure. And it would likely, 4 million is not that much. If you look at the overall rate of home sales in the country, I mean, gosh, we could sure use 4 million houses today, but if interest rates, here's what happens. If you get a combination of factors where, say, interest rates are higher, the market starts to really soften, and then you dump a couple million extra houses on the market, that would very likely cause softening in prices, but it would put upward pressure on rents.
So add to that, because that would all be happening within the next 2 years if this crazy bill is passed, you also have the moratoriums on foreclosures ending. And all of that inventory, that shadow inventory, will now start flooding the market.
And we've talked a lot about the moratoriums. There's really not that much shadow inventory. It's not like the Great Recession. I mean, we've analyzed that in depth. My partner in the collective Mastermind, Ken McElroy, has also done some really good analysis on that as well. So that's, I'm not too worried about that, because that shadow inventory isn't really that high. With the ability to exit properties so easily, I mean, we're in a market where there's way more buyers than sellers right now, but again, possible changes, and super low interest rates, very easy to refinance, very easy to exit. Houses are super affordable. In fact, according to First American Real House Price Index, which I like a lot, not as good as the HCI, the Hartman Comparison Index, but pretty darn good. They say that today, housing prices are 26% cheaper than they were 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. In real terms.
The other far-reaching is a lot of funds that are set up for funding deals, and these would probably be short-term, flips or transactional funding. A lot of those are Roth IRA entities. That entire thing has to be dismantled as well.
So those would be the private loans and the hard money loans, which I have done through my IRA LLC.
Correct,
personally.
but a fund.
Yeah,
so if you have a syndication where you have 12 different people who have IRAs in there, and that fund has a couple of, deca million. It's used to lending out money for
Right.
different projects.
Yeah.
Crowdfunding, those things right there.
So this would slow the flippers down.
It definitely would
There'd be a
slow-
lot less flips coming on the market
Yes.
so that actually is a reduction in inventory.
It is a reduction
Yeah.
in inventory. But where will they stop? And that's the whole thing. Now, there are solutions to it. Don't race out if you have a Roth IRA or an IRA and unravel your entity. There may be a way to do an in-kind transfer back to your custodian, and that's something we're researching right now, that the titling would just change, not unraveling that and selling that property. So we're closely monitoring this. It was supposed to go to vote on Monday. It did not. So we're still looking for that magical date. We're very optimistic. We've been calling our congresspeople and our senators and doing a real grassroots push on that. So hopefully we will prevail and beat Wall Street, because that's really where the money would go.
Yes, it always consolidates in the ultra-rich and the banksters and the Wall Street crooks, doesn't it?
It always does.
Yeah.
They want to get the money out of Main Street and into Wall Street, and we're not having it.
Okay, everybody, so put on your tinfoil hat for a moment, because now I'm going to give you my take on it. And, I don't want to ever marginalize this phrase conspiracy theory, because it is legitimate. There are all sorts of conspiracies going on around us every single day.
Yes.
People use that phrase, which was started to be popularized in the 60s when you had this uprising against the Vietnam War and so forth. And so the CIA sort of planted that phrase conspiracy theory into the zeitgeist of the time back then, right? That's just sort of the public narrative. I mean, that's just wrong, because there are real conspiracies. They're not conspiracy theories, they're conspiracy facts. And look, America was a conspiracy against the King of England. Okay, so
There you go.
tell me there's, don't marginalize conspiracy theories. They're actually true many times. So here it is. You ready? And I've talked about this for a long time. If you've been listening for, the last 15, 16 years to my show and my stuff, you've heard me say this. I never converted to a Roth IRA because I was always concerned that a desperate government that becomes predatory on its citizens, which we are certainly seeing many signs of that, and we have been, will just change the rules.
And they are even with your bank account. So that is part of the bill.
Yeah. The $600.
The $600.
Yeah.
So it is becoming a little more a lot more predatory. Where it used to be anything over $9,999, that had to be reported. Now it's anything $600 or over.
Right.
So to your point, could they automatically just go in and take it? Absolutely, but could they also take your bank account?
They can do whatever they want.
Do whatever they
That's
want.
the problem. And the $600 thing is going to really affect people using Venmo and PayPal and Zelle, and people, a hairstylist accepting tips on Venmo and stuff like that. And they're really trying to just grab all this money, and they're trying to digitize everything and track everything and surveil us like crazy. It's a bad time.
It is a bad time.
What I always say is, the bigger the government, the smaller the citizen. The smaller the government, the bigger the citizen. So what do you want? Do you want a small government and you to be the big thing, which our founders wanted?
Absolutely.
Or what we have now with the government being the big thing and you're just chattel, which is what we have.
It's really more of a policing, it's definitely a policing effort, and I get it. It was done for Etsy and eBay and all those people that was sort of using PayPal as the thing, but the bank's infrastructure is not set up to do that. Talked to a couple of bankers and they said, look, the fees that we would have to charge to offset the amount of people we'd have to bring on, it would be cost prohibitive for the average person using a bank. And so now you have that element.
Ever since 9/11, banking has just become an absolute nightmare.
It's a nightmare.
It is. I never spent so much time on my banking needs as I do today. It's absolutely insane. Now, of course, I have a whole bunch of entities, but just managing my banking, I do this every day.
Every day.
Every day I'm emailing with one of my bankers. I guess to have the violin, this is the problem of the wealthy class. But look, it's a pain. And this is taking away time from productive work.
Absolutely.
It's because I'm having to spend all this time defending myself against my own government.
Absolutely.
But the big super ultra rich people like Jeff Bezos and Mark Efferberg, I'm going to throw that in there. You know what I mean, folks. This is a family-friendly show, but, hey.
Frankenstein.
Yeah, Dodd-Frankenstein, exactly, yeah. They have all sorts of, accounting firms and people working for them that'll just do all this for them.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of us peasants, we got to do this ourselves.
Well, no one's asked why the unraveling of the entity. And the reason for why is because the custodians don't even know the wealth that you're amassing inside of a checkbook LLC and a trust.
Yeah.
You do
a checkbook IRA. You
right.
get the LLC in your IRA that gives you checkbook control.
Correct.
So they don't even know how much wealth you're creating inside of that, really.
No, but you do your reporting, your annual reporting back to your custodian as to what you believe the value is. But if that reporting isn't exactly spot on, and some people undervalue it.
Well, and it's hard. So
it is hard.
Let me just interrupt that for a moment and finish my conspiracy facts.
Yeah, you're on a roll.
Okay, look, I have always said that the first thing the government will attack is the low-hanging fruit.
Yes.
And the low-hanging fruit is money in brokerage accounts. And so all of these IRAs and 401ks that keep the money in a brokerage account, it's really easy for the government to just pass a law, sign a paper, and say, look, all these have to be nationalized.
Yes.
Because I believe they're going to nationalize all these private retirement plans for our own protection, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, wink, wink, for our own protection. It's always to take care of us. They'll maybe have some sort of crisis, scandal, emergency. Maybe they'll engineer it. Maybe they won't. They'll just be complicit or, take advantage of it opportunistically. And they're going to nationalize these accounts. But the hard ones to nationalize are ones where people have a bunch of random assets in them. They've got a note on a loan that they made on a property.
Sure.
They've got, a property in there. And it's very hard for the government to take these things because they're not low-hanging fruit. They can't nationalize them very easily. So I believe this is a step in that direction. And whether or not this passes, it will eventually come to pass.
It will eventually come to pass.
It always does. This stuff gets out in the ether, and then we just grow more and more accustomed to this kind of control and surveillance.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, do you notice, folks, how I want you to remember back 8 to 12 years ago, how everybody was up in arms about the NSA. And now guess what? The NSA is still surveilling us. They're doing even more and more, and nobody's even talking about it anymore.
That's because they're going, look, over here, we're going to create some other thing. Well,
wag the dog.
Wag the dog.
Yeah.
That 800-page bill was not recreated in an afternoon.
Yeah.
We had other crises that were, your bubble-headed bleach blonde.
Who comes on at 5
and
can tell you about the plane crash with a gleam in her eyes. Yeah, Don Henley's song. Yeah, that's a great song. I love that one. Yeah. We just high-fived.
We just high-fived. We just had a moment. So that's the distraction. Look over here. So I always say, when there's a catastrophe, when there's a hurricane or a war or rumors of war, think to yourself, why are they showing that every 22 seconds on TV? What bill are they creating right now while we're sleeping?
Yeah. Hey, look at the Obamacare was passed on Sunday night at like 2 a.m. Eastern time.
Correct.
And Pelosi was up there. It's disgusting.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, it is.
So just keep yourself aware. Stay out of mainstream news, and always have a plan. Obviously, this is there to destroy anonymity and asset protection.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who would normally not a lot of people would buy a home in a Roth as a rental, although you do get the tax-free income, you don't get the depreciation and all of the other sexy benefits. But if you're funding a deal that out of your Roth or your IRA that's in an entity LLC, and that person is collecting, that has to be unraveled, potentially. Has to be unraveled. So some of those notes are going to be called due.
Yeah.
I don't believe it will get to that catastrophic.
And these private placement memorandums that people invest inside their plan.
Yeah.
I mean, all these startup companies. Can you imagine the chaos and the damage that would cause if all of these investment funds need to come back to the investors, and the litigation is going to be. I mean, the courts are just going to be packed with litigation over this stuff.
The custodians are not set up for this.
Yeah.
If it's done, then when you go to do an investment, you have to go to your custodian and say, I want to buy that rental, and it has to be titled in Equity Trust Company Custodian for the benefit of Darlene Root, number 11, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants that.
Right.
I like the anonymity of a trust and the asset protection of an LLC. I might do notes with the custodian, but I'm not going to do anything that might have a possible, that could be litigious down the road, nor do I want my name on public record. You do a lot of real estate over the last 42 years. Your name can get on the public record, and those are the deeper pockets for a lawsuit.
Right.
A slip and fall could wipe you out because that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, well, this is a potential seismic shift, folks. So we just wanted to report on it. It was not planned for today.
No.
And, I know we're just standing here outside by the pool. So if the audio quality isn't up to snuff as usual, please forgive us for that. But we just wanted to really share this important information with you. Closing thoughts on this topic.
I don't know. Should we give him Hire's website to go to?
Well, he's going to be on the show. So one of our listeners actually sent me something from he's a tax attorney, right? John Hire, and he's actually going to be on the show. We just booked him. So you'll hear more from him about this stuff coming up on an episode real soon. Don't forget about my birthday contest, folks. And you can go, by the way, I think the page is ready finally, jasonhartman.com/contest, jasonhartman.com/contest. You can win $500 cash, a bunch of cool gadgets, Alexas, Kindles, Ring doorbells, so they can do further surveillance on all of us. And it's just reality. It's just reality. And so all that's available. And if you closed on a property through our network this year, whatever prize you win doubles.
Yay!
So that could be $1,000 cash for 2 winners.
2 doorbells.
And 2 gadgets. Pick whichever ones you want. We'll send them to you, and good stuff. So don't forget to do that. But Darlene, any other closing thoughts?
No, I think we've covered it all. Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to take the tinfoil hat off now.
Yeah. I hate how they marginalize people for just the reality of the situation. But good stuff. And back to that NSA comment earlier. Just remember, if your hard drive crashes, the NSA has the backup.
Sure. No problem.
So you don't have to back up anymore,
no.
folks. Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, thanks for listening. Don't forget the birthday contest, jasonhartman.com/contest. Make your video on whatever topic you really want. It could be your 5-year plan. Could be just tell me about the teachings that have impacted your life with listening to my podcast, YouTube, or whatever. Just whatever you want. We just thought we'd kind of leave it open. We'll judge it based on whoever gets the most views on YouTube. Also, the quality and content of the video. And don't agonize about the quality. We don't expect you to be a pro video production person. Just make a video. Sometimes the gritty videos are actually the best ones.
That's it, grassroots.
Yeah, grassroots. Good stuff. All right. Well, Darlene, thank you so much. And listeners, thank you. And until next time, happy investing.
So George Gammon, Jason Hartman, and we've created a high-level mastermind group called The Collective. The goal of The Collective is for you to learn from the 3 of us, as well as, of course, the other members, on how to build and, more importantly, how to maintain your wealth. In this video, we're going to go into detail about what The Collective is and what it can do for you. Enjoy. So I'm Ken McElroy. I've been in real estate for over 30 years. Started with a 2-bedroom, 2-bath using my own money, and now I own over $1 billion worth of real estate that I bought over the years, built a big company. We have a construction company, a development company, a property management company, and of course an investment company. And typically now we syndicate and work with large, both private and public institutions for the equity and the debt. And so what I bring to The Collective is how to scale, how to grow, starting with one really small property with no experience at all and growing it into an organization, which I've been able to do, that basically runs almost without me. So that's what I'm going to bring to The Collective. We decided to start The Collective because, one, I met George Gammon, and George brings a very interesting perspective about the economy and the Fed and the way money works and Bitcoin and alternative types of investments, which, quite honestly, I was super focused on real estate almost the entire time. And even I want to be a little bit more diverse. So when I talked to George and to Jason, They're always doing very, very different things on the investment side. Jason specifically is more focused on the single family housing and what's going on in that market so that we could collaborate and have different viewpoints on different things. And so that's why I thought the collective would be good, because I think everybody's kind of searching for the same kinds of answers. So the collective means to me basically the collective group, the whole. And I've always been a big believer of team and collaboration. So for me, it really means collaboration, of everyone kind of coming into a room and learning from each other based on their individual highs and their individual lows, and to be very, very respectful of all their independent views on things, and to be more open-minded, transparent, and authentic. So I cannot wait for the group to get together each and every quarter, because we all have very different walks of life that we're going through, and so it's very, very cool to get into one room with like-minded people. I think the right person for the collective is somebody who's into personal development, somebody who's trying to be a better individual, somebody who's trying to have that work-life balance, trying to figure out good decision-making on the investment side specifically, good decision-making on the personal side perhaps, certainly on their health and on their wealth. The members that have already signed up are people typically that have businesses that they're growing, businesses that they've started, or businesses that they've sold. So typically they're higher net worth, and they're trying to figure out what to do with their money. They're probably a little bit afraid of inflation. They're probably a little bit concerned about where to invest. And they're obviously looking at real estate as one component, somebody that's trying to do the right things both on the personal side and on the financial side. So some of the experiences that members can expect to get out of the collective are certainly the network. And I think that's always super powerful. I've been involved in groups like this before, like EO and YPO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, and YPO, which is Young Presidents Organization, which is kind of a peer-to-peer network. And that's what I envisioned, and I think people are going to certainly get that out of there. They're going to have lifelong friends for sure from this, and they're going to meet people at every single event. But also, we're going to have fun. So as an example, things like race car driving and doing all kinds of really cool things and meeting celebrities and things like that, and fashion shows are going to be part of it. So it's kind of how do we have fun and learn together, and we're going to have that at each and every event. So thanks for watching. If you guys are interested, there's a link below you can click on. It'll take you right to the website, which has a load of information on exactly what the collective is, where the next events are, and what exactly you'll be getting if you become a member. Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.